Hey everyone, Ethan here from Extreme RC 4x4. Today I'm going to be showing you how to install my new trailing arm kit. Looks like this, all packaged up, and it uses the parts from the Element Enduro Gatekeeper. So the benefit of this is we're going to get some additional ground clearance in comparison to the original trailing arm kit, which uses axial Yeti length trailing arms. The new Gatekeeper trailing arms are much shorter and probably more proper for the vehicles that I've been installing this kit on. So as you can see here, it's probably almost 2 inches shorter, if not more. But I do have part numbers for you guys. The trailing arms is part number 42250. And then we're also going to be installing the Gatekeeper anti-sway bar, which you can get on their website for about $20. The trailing arms are, I think, $10. So this is part number 42252. So overall, this order from Element is probably about $30. As you can see here, you guys probably haven't seen this packaging on YouTube before, but I have been packaging parts like this for several months. So you can see these are the mounts that go on the frame, our shock towers, and then all of our hardware is packaged here in the bottom. So you can go ahead and get this opened up. I did just package this for myself. I haven't released these to you guys yet. So before I open that hardware, I'm just gonna start breaking into this install. I have put these different chrome body clips on my trail runner just because they're a lot easier to take off. I have a little bit of a hard time getting the stock Element body clips off. I'm not sure if it's just a issue with me personally or if other people also have this problem, but I find it really difficult to get them on and off. So one of the first things we can do that's really simple and easy getting started is I'm going to get all this hardware out first so I don't have to deal with this packaging. So now that I have all that hardware out, I will tell you guys that I do include all of the hardware needed to install my upgrades. It's just something I've always done because before I started making parts, I had to install way too many aftermarket parts that did not come with hardware, and I find that really annoying. So we're going to start with these two aluminum rods, which will go into the frame. We can just put them in sideways and then straighten them out. And we're going to use these to bolt our shock towers to. And the shock towers lean forwards, not backwards, and they are directional because each side has these spots where the screws will go, so they sit nice and flush. Okay, so I'm going to start with the one in front here. So I have to line up the rod and then get it started. The rods are threaded. And then the one on the back side, I'll start here as well. Now we can do the other side too. Goes in the same way, except now the rods are already in there. And sorry if I did not mention, but these use the 4 flathead screws. There's only 4 of them, so they all get used right here. So those are nice and rigid. You essentially get an aluminum cross member back there, which I'm sure also helps to stiffen up the frame slightly. Now, the next thing we're going to do is take off these electronics trays on the side. Hardware is included for both the IFS front end and a 4-linked front end, because if you have a 4-link front end, you're going to have an extra screw on one side for the upper link, whichever side it's on, I'm not exactly sure. So these mounts will go just like this on the frame, and as far as hardware goes, it's pretty simple. I'll just sort this out here into the different sizes that we have. Alright, so there's really not too many different sizes of hardware in here. You just need to know what you're working with. So the largest screws are M3 by 22s. These are going to be used on this tray wherever there's a link. So right here, the second hole from the back, we're going to be using a 22mm screw because that goes through to a nut on this link. So there's 1, 2, and then there's 2 more for the front. So you won't need those 2 if you have the IFS front end. The next size, the 22mm are also going to be used to attach the trailing arms to the link mount on the axle. The 4 next screws we get are 16s. That's going to be used to attach the shocks and the anti-sway bar to the trailing arms. So we can kind of set these aside for a second. The next ones that we have 6 of are 14mm. These 14s are going to be used on the skid plate. So there's 2 on this side, 2 on the other side. So 4 there, and then we're also going to be using 2 to attach the trailing arms to the mounts that bolt to the chassis. And then the 4 smallest screws we get are 10mm. Those are going to be used on the very ends of these electronics trays. So all of the hardware here is going to get replaced because it needs to be made longer, or longer hardware needs to be installed because we are spacing it out a little bit. If you want to, you can go ahead and take the rock slider off and then scoot it in 1 hole. Mine's in the 3rd hole right now, so I'm going to put it in the 2nd one because we're going to be spacing this out about 1/8 of an inch, and these pieces, the holes are spaced out about 1/8 of an inch, so spacing them in 1 should be about perfect. Okay, so now that we have that done on this side, we can go ahead and start pulling screws out. Make sure you have a pair of pliers on hand for these upper links. Alright, so with this, all the screws removed, we're still kind of attached to the electronics, and that's fine. The 2 plates that bolt to the frame are identical, so they're not needing to go on a specific side. I'm going to start with these 4 smallest screws, 1 in the very end of this. And then another one on the opposite end. Then we can set the plate on here, and then we can go ahead and attach it all to the frame. Then once we have both of those tight, we can go ahead and start installing these 14s. We'll take 2 of these, and then we're going to attach them in the centermost holes. Now the only screw we have left to install is, since this is a trail runner at the IFS front end, we just have one upper link to attach here in the rear. You might have one in the front if you're running a solid axle. So grab our link and just make sure we get that started in that screw. Maybe a little more thread. Then once you get that in there, bring some more thread out for our nut. And once we get the nut on here, pliers, so a 22mm just gets us to the locking part of the lock nut. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on this side of the frame. It's the same exact procedure, just flipped, and then I'll catch back up with you guys. Alright guys, so you can see I got this side done as well. I think I forgot to mention on the other side though, make sure that you're putting the mounts to the back side. I think that's kind of common sense, but I just want to make sure I point that out there. Alright, so we are down to same number of nuts. We haven't used any nuts yet. 2 14s, all of our 4 16s are left, and then I have 4 22mm screws left. We only need 2 of those for the link mounts, so there's some extras there because I have the IFS front end. The next thing I'm going to do is take the tires off, or at least the tire on one side where we're going to be working right now. Now with that removed, what I'm going to do is remove this lower link, because we're actually going to be using the balls inside of those rod ends for the trailing arms, because the trailing arms do not include any balls. And if you wanted to, when you order trailing arms from Element, you can also pick up some of the steel balls that come standard on the Gatekeeper. Pull this out of here. Make sure you save the spacer that spaces the shock off of the axle. Then we're going to take a smaller driver and pull out this grub screw in the skid for our lower links. I just like to reinstall that in there because it's really not going to go anywhere, I guess, sitting right there. Okay, now we can go ahead and pop the balls out of our rod ends here. Just use some pliers. You can probably even just pull them out instead of popping them. No, maybe not. And pretty impressive. These Element balls have hardly worn down at all compared to like a stock axial set of ball joints would probably wear down a lot. So I like to just put these in from the outside, so the big flange is going to be on the outside of the truck. Just set these in with some pliers again. Now the front side of these is here. All the mounts are going to go on the back side. and we'll take a 22mm screw and then one of these 3D printed spacers. The 3D printed spacers are going to go inside of the link mounts, and then the trailing arms mount on the outside. Go ahead and thread that through. Once we have that through, there's a little bit of thread left for a lock nut. And then we'll just tighten this down. Once we have this installed, we can take one of our 14s on the front side, put it in the mount, and then the nut on the back side. Now, what we're going to do is take the shock off of the factory shock towers. And then once we've done that, you'll want to use your original spacer that was on the axle and then put that back at the shock. And we're going to put our shock onto the shock tower. I'm going to go just with the very middle position. There's 5 holes to choose from. They're all threaded. And then your shock will go into the trailing arms. Take one of our 16mm screws to go through there, and then a lock nut on the back side. Wrong size. Okay, so now we have this side is all done, we can put the wheel and tire back on. Now you want to inspect your work. The wheelbase is going to be the same, so you won't need to change bodies or do any trimming. Basically, what this is going to do is give you a much smoother suspension. Compared to the other side, this is a good time to compare that. And it's also going to increase your suspension travel. So right now we're getting more droop back here than we would, and a greater up travel. You can see we're getting kind of a lot of flex, but that's going to be eliminated if you choose to install the anti-sway bar kit, which I will be doing. So let me do this exact same thing to this side, and I'll walk you guys through how to install the anti-sway bar. Alright guys, so I know I said that I was going to install the Gatekeeper sway bar, but after looking at my Gatekeeper, I think I'm going to save this for another build, because I think it's going to be too narrow around these shock towers, because I need to leave these in place for the trail runner body. So what I'm going to be doing instead is reinstalling my Reef's RC anti-sway bar. This is a really nice sway bar. I know I didn't make a video on it, but I thought it was a really high quality piece, especially because even the rod ends, the plastic rod ends, were threaded. So I do make these pieces, my anti-sway bar mounts, which bolt onto the frame so that you can use or so that you could use any sway bar with my original trailing arm kit. So these I'll be installing again, I guess, on here so that I can run this Reefs RC sway bar. I think how I'm going to set it up is putting the links on the inside of the sway bar. Alright, so let's get the mounts put onto the frame. First, it's pretty easy, you just pull these two rear bumper mount screws out. And then we take the anti-sway bar mount. There's a hole that is smaller than all the rest of them. That is where the sway bar will go. You can install it up or down. I like to go up. Same thing on the other side. And then I'm gonna put the sway bar in here so I can figure out how big of spacers I need to make. I just have this little clear tubing I'm gonna use to make some spacers for this. So overall I'm just gonna need about as much as right there. Just wanna cut one big piece off and then cut it in half. Not very accurate, but should work. Alright, and then I'll cut this roughly in half. Alright, now when you're installing these sway bars, you want to make sure that you have the flat spot on this grub screw. Otherwise you're not going to get a lot of that anti-sway, I guess. So basically how these work is they're just like torsion bar, and it has these flat spots on the shaft right there. Need to make sure we get the flat spot where that screw is. Just get that good and tight so we don't have any problems with it. I do like that Reefs uses not a small grub screw, a larger one that uses this 5/64 or I'm not even sure the metric size, 2 millimeters maybe. I'll put one of these spacers on, put it through the chassis mounts. My other spacer, that one looks a little bit long to me, so I'm just going to shorten it a little bit. It could be because I cut it so sideways. See how that looks? A little better. Not perfect. I'll take a little bit more off. Oh man, I installed it upside down, so make sure the letters are upside down. I gotta make sure I get it in the right way, otherwise that'll drive me crazy. And then I'll make sure I get this one installed same way this one is on the flat spot. Alright, that feels pretty good to me. So I prematurely installed our wheels and tires. To pull those back off and then install the links for the anti-sway bar. These also attach with 16mm screws just like the shocks did, and these will go in the furthest back position with a lock nut. I can put it back on this side. I'll do the same thing for the other side. Alright guys, so that is the kit completely installed. With this anti-sway bar installed now, we are back to a pretty normal amount of flex. Without that, you'll be getting a lot of flex out of this rear suspension. And it is much softer because of the leverage that are on the shocks. I might consider putting a stronger spring in there. And because of the additional travel, the exhaust is hitting the axle, so I might cut that off depending on what I'm going to do with this trail runner. I'm really not too sure yet, but the major improvement of this trailing arm kit over the last one is the ground clearance you're going to get. Because the Yeti trailing arms went to about halfway down the skid plate, there really was a lot of material here that no longer is with these shorter arms, and I mounted these arms up as high as I could to the frame. So in my opinion, this is going to be an upgrade for me over the last trailing arm kit. I still am going to continue selling the old kit if for some reason you prefer that over this one. For me, the ground clearance is a major benefit of this, but whatever you prefer, it's up to you. I do wish that I could get the Gatekeeper sway bar to fit back here, but I just think it's going to be too narrow next to these shock towers, and even this anti-sway bar has about 1/8 of an inch clearance, which is definitely good. So I'm happy with that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This kit will be available on my website, Extreme RC 4x4. Sorry, I should show you it with the body on so you guys know that the wheelbase hasn't changed. Oh, what's going on here? So there you guys go, here it is, all said and done. It is pretty soft in the back, so I'll probably be picking up some stiffer springs to go back there. But the increased travel you get from the kit, the last one was a really hot seller, and this one I think is even better with the increased ground clearance. So hope you guys like this. Please like, comment, and subscribe on the video. And check this out on my website. I'll be running an awesome Black Friday deal, so if you guys want to get in on that, go to my website and sign up for emails. You'll be the first to be notified. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.